Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? Today's episode is brought to you by the 90-day challenge that kicks off in January. If you want to make 2022 way different than 2021 and you want accountability, you want strategy, you want a game plan, you want a challenge, well, let me introduce you to the 90-day challenge. This is my second year doing this, and it is going to be awesome. Every single week for 90 days, you have a goal. We help you conquer it. There is group coaching. There is one-on-one feedback. There is game planning, not only for the entire year of 2022, but for the first 90 days, which matter the most when you're trying to make new habits form, make changes happen, and make something great happen for your own life. Now look, 2020, 2021, those were question mark years, but if you are so ready to make changes, have new goals, and have a year that stands out from the rest, I introduce you to this year's 90-day challenge. Sign up this week for $25 off. Use code CHALLENGE at checkout. I can't wait to see you there. Hey, any youngers, it's me, your host, Jen Glantz, back with another episode of the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. I'm back here in Brooklyn bringing you episode 199. I'm releasing it early this week because I am saving episode 200 for this Friday. And that's a very special episode. I have someone really awesome who sat down and interviewed me for the 200th episode. This is a person who not only encouraged me to start a podcast, but was one of my very first guests. So for all of you loyal listeners who have been here for almost 4 years and have listened to 200 of these episodes, you might know who I'm talking about. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, get ready because Friday morning that episode drops. It's episode 200. It's really cool to finally be the person who was interviewed for my own podcast, and it's a really juicy, awesome episode that I can't wait for you to hear. But I'm releasing a bonus episode this week, episode 199, about a topic that I am really passionate about. You know, at this time of year, a lot of people sit down and they think about goals for next year. They think about New Year's resolutions and how they want to do things differently, but nobody really sits down and actually takes inventory on what the heck just happened over the past 365 days. I call this time of year the time of year that we have to break up with a year. Now, if you think about dating, I was always a very tough person to break up with because I always demanded answers. Why? Why was this person trying to end things with me? I would almost ask the person to do an exit interview, like the relationship they were leaving was a full-time job they decided to quit. Most people who broke up with me did not give me feedback, but of course some did. Some had those answers like, I just can't see a future with you, or it's not you, but it's not me either, those kinds of things. But either way, I started to realize that their reasons mattered very little. When people break up with you, when things end, it's about how you break up with the relationship, whether or not you wanted to, that matters more. It's about how you look back and you analyze and you understand what just happened. That's what matters more than anything else. It's the same thing with years. At the end of the year, we're always rushing to set goals, but we don't really sit down and figure out what was this year all about. So this week's episode breaks down how to do that for you. This is actually a recording of a live workshop I put on yesterday called How to Break Up a 2021. And inside of this episode, you're going to hear a bunch of different ways that you should really spend some quality time sitting down and picking apart the year. I'm excited for you to listen to this episode. Think of this as a fun activity for the month of December. Do it with a friend, do it solo. Just make sure you do it before you sit down and plan for a brand new year. As always, I'm cheering you on. Get ready for this episode and get excited for Friday's episode. All my love, Jen Glantz. We often hear people at this time of year talk about something called New Year's resolutions and goals. You hear it all the time. Your friends are saying, okay, next year I want to do this. I want to be this person. I want to change all of these things in my life. But the biggest problem with that is that a lot of people skip this step, which is taking inventory on the year they just lived. For so many of us, we're eager to change. We're eager to be somebody new, but we're not so eager to look back and see what the heck just happened. And that's exactly what I'm going to walk you through tonight. I want you to have an amazing year of 2022. I want it to be everything and more. But for you to get that, for you to understand how to do that, for you to live that, we have to talk about our past. So for those of you that don't know me, and I know that a lot of you do, my name is Jen Glantz. I am a lot of things, and I am these things very proudly. I'm the founder of a company called Bridesmaid for Hire. I've been doing this company for 7 years. I am a 3-time nonfiction author. I am the host of the podcast You're Not Getting Any Younger, which helps people disrupt their lives. I have an odd jobs newsletter where every single week I give you a handful of really odd yet high-paying jobs that you can start ASAP. And most recently, I released my very first product called the Newlywed card game. So I do a lot of things, and a lot of these things on this list were things that I started this year, because a lot of what I wanted to make 2021 for myself was a year that I challenged myself, a year that I built new things, not a year that I was necessarily super successful or I had all of these big wins, but 2021 for me was a building year. And oftentimes when we look at our years, we understand what our goals are, what we want to do, but sometimes we have to define those years in terms of how we're going to put forward our effort and what we're going to focus on. So a lot of what we do is plan ahead, but we don't always get closure. Now, I don't know about you, but if you've ever been in a relationship that ended, there's always that breakup period. And if you're the one getting broken up with, if someone says to you, I am done with this relationship, I don't want to be with you anymore, you're desperate for closure. When people used to break up with me, which happened a lot, I used to sit there and wonder, why? What did I do? And I would often ask them, like, hey, I understand you don't want to see me again, but why? I wanted the feedback. And they would give me their answers that it's not me, it's not them, it's this or it's that. And after a while, I started to realize that closure doesn't come from anybody else. Closure doesn't come from other people's words. Closure comes from our understanding of a situation. And that is exactly how we get closure with a year. It doesn't come from outside feedback. It doesn't come from how many Instagram likes a post of yours got. It doesn't even come from what your boss says about you at work. Closure for a year comes in the form of how you look back, process, understand, and use all of that to help you move forward. So how do we break up a 2021? There are 4 simple steps to help you do that. And I'm going to walk you through each of these steps. And these are things that you should take away with you. These are things that in the future, maybe toward the end of the year, you're going to want to sit down with yourself and give yourself about 30 minutes to an hour for each of these categories. These categories are meant to challenge you. These categories are meant for you to sit down and really dive deep into each one. So let's start off with month by month. So what I want you to do is go back in your calendar. And for a lot of you, your calendar's on your phone, it's on your computer, and I want you to start back at January. And when you're going month to month, you want to look at 2 categories of things. First of all, you want to go month to month and pick 5 things per month that you're proud of, that were wins, that were moments of success, that were things of joy, that were memorable to you. It's crazy because We live these years that are filled with 365 days, yet when we look back at the year, we can't really understand or correctly even vocalize what we accomplished, what we did. Everything seems like a blur, but this is our life, and your life should never seem or feel like a blur. It should be something that you have clarity on. I started off this year with a really cool challenge for myself, and I have it right here. I can turn the camera and show it to you. It's called my win list, and every single month, I wrote down about 5 things that I was super proud of that were wins for me. And these weren't things that if you saw this list, you'd be like, that's a win, but these were things to me that I was just super proud of. Some of them were road trips that Adam and I took. Some of them were releasing a new workshop just like I'm doing tonight. Some of them were creating content for social media. Some of them were just the fact that I took time that month to do a hobby that I love. I love to read, I love to play guitar, but I don't often do those things, and those were on my win-win list. So I want you to look back at your year and go month by month and pick 5 good moments from each month. I even have something on here. For the month of August, I finally saw a friend of mine after 2 years that I hadn't seen. And I put that on my list because it meant so much to see that person again in real life, not through a screen. And that was on my list. So that when I look back at 2021 and can't remember what I did or what brought me joy, I have this list right here of 5 things per month that I'm super, super proud of. On the flip side of that, it's also so important to know what happened during those months that maybe didn't go as you wanted or go as planned, or many setbacks. For the month of October, I had all of these big goals, but I found myself sick. I had one of those lingering colds. I actually got sick twice in the month of October. So that was something I put as a setback. I couldn't really control it, but it was something that definitely pushed around my plans a little bit. For some of you, setbacks might have been that you got laid off, or you changed jobs and ended up not liking it. Maybe a setback was an end of a relationship, or that you moved. Maybe a setback was that you launched something and it didn't go as planned. Maybe a setback was that you had this goal. There was this thing you wanted to accomplish, and halfway through you just stopped. Rather than looking at those moments and trying to erase them or pretending they don't exist, write them down. Look at them, because we're going to focus on picking apart those things later. But it's super important to be able to take inventory on the past year and sit down month by month and know what brought you joy, what was good for you, and what maybe held you back or didn't go as planned. Number 2, we're going to focus on the wins, the moments of success, the things that you are super proud of. Like I mentioned, you want to be able to end a year and sit there and know exactly what that year was known for. So if somebody asks you, hey, what were the highlights of your year? Rather than saying, I'm not quite sure, you would have lists and lists and lists. You should be able to have a notepad, and if someone asked you that question, you'd say, hey, take a seat, let me read you my notes from 2021. So as you're thinking about how you would define this year, how you would answer that question of, hey, what are the highlights of your year so far? Think about these things right here. Number 1, what were the goals that you achieved? Some of you had New Year's resolutions you made in January. Some of you have a goal that you set yesterday and you're working on right now. That is okay. What were some of the things that you achieved from start to finish, no matter how big or how small they were? You might have goals as well that you started and realized were completely not the right goals for you. I want you to know that that's okay. Sometimes we make these New Year's resolutions or these promises to ourselves or these goals we have for ourselves, and once we're inside of these goals, we realize, you know what? This isn't actually what I wanted to do. This isn't actually what brings me joy. I'm not having fun with this goal, and it's okay to pause a goal, to pivot a goal, to even let a goal sit on the side and maybe pick it up later on. I was talking to somebody today who had a goal of taking piano lessons, and they're enjoying it, but they're wondering if maybe they stop enjoying it next month, if it's okay to stop. And the answer is absolutely. Goals don't always have to be such a linear straight line. Within goals, we can pause, pivot, change, or even push them to the side. It happens a lot with me as a writer. I write these books, but sometimes I don't write them in the span of a year. Sometimes I go back and forth and change how I feel about writing that book, or switch the plot entirely, or just put it aside for a couple of months or a year, and that is okay. So when you look back at your goals, what are the ones that you finished? What are the goals that you started? And what are the goals that you were strong enough and confident enough to say, you know what? This isn't actually a goal that I want in my life. Think about your wins. What were the things that you were so proud of? Did you ask for a raise this year? Did you set a boundary with a friend? Did you finally figure out your finances, or at least start trying to figure them out? Did you look at your life and say, okay, here's a really big, scary thing that I want to do for myself? What were those gigantic wins? And I know some of you are sitting here thinking, Jen, my year wasn't super interesting. I didn't launch a podcast. I kept the same job. I don't want you to think like that. Don't compare your life to anybody else's, because within your year, even if it wasn't the year you had hoped for or planned to have, I guarantee you there are wins in all different places. And a great way to help you extract those wins is to simply look back at your calendar, look back at the photos and videos on your phone, look back at text messages or direct messages or emails, and all of a sudden you will find those big wins. Because relationships and because love gives us energy, gives us strength, gives us inspiration. Can you look back at the relationships this year that you are really grateful for? And these don't have to be romantic relationships. It doesn't have to be that you met the love of your life. That doesn't have to be that. Maybe it's relationships with friends. Did you make any new friends this year? Did you strengthen relationships with any of your friends that maybe years before weren't as strong? Did you rekindle a friendship? Did you make new acquaintances at work or in your apartment building or neighbors? Did you do anything, and I'm sure you did, to build stronger relationships with anyone? And maybe again, you're thinking, you know what, Jen, I spent a lot of time with myself this year, and that is okay too. Write down what kind of relationship you built with yourself this year, how you strengthened it, how you changed it, how you improved it, or maybe how you just understood it better. And finally, what are the highlights? What are the things that you are the most proud of when it comes to 2021? Look back and write down those things as well. When we talk about the moment of being proud, we often default to think of positive. So you might be so proud that you achieved, you accomplished, you did this. But you want to know where we can find really proud moments, my friends? Inside of our failures, inside of our mistakes, inside of the moments where we were not perfect. And you might think, how can I be proud of those moments? Those are the moments that you think about constantly. But inside of those moments, something changed. You grew. You realized something. Maybe you even said to yourself, never again, or next time different. And that right there is a proud moment. Maybe this year you struggled with something really, really tough. Something that took up a lot of your mental capacity and your emotional capacity as well. You can be proud of the fact that you survived that. You got through that. You woke up the next day and tried again. Some of the best things that we are the most proud of are the things we keep secret, are the struggles that we have that we're continuously trying and trying and trying. So when you think of proud versus win, those are two very different words, because proud is us, and maybe proud are the things that we don't show people or tell people, but proud are the moments where we say to ourselves, I kept trying. Or maybe you didn't, maybe you gave up, but then you tried again a week later. That's okay too. Your proud moments are the moments that make you human. Not perfect, but human. Next, just like in a relationship, and by the way, you could apply all of this to the end of a relationship as well, we want to start to figure out what are the things that didn't go as planned, what do we want to learn and leave behind? So this is the time when you want to sort of look back and think about, okay, what are the things that didn't go as planned, and what could I learn from those things? Oftentimes when we set goals, or maybe we have new habits we formed this year that we're not super proud of, I want you to think about the things in your life that are holding you back, or the habits that you have that are holding you back, that you want to learn from and leave behind this year. I know that in the pandemic, like most of you probably, I developed new habits I never ever had before. Before the pandemic, I never watched TV. I never saw a full TV show, probably in the last 6 years. I always thought that watching TV was something I would do if I had free time, and I try not to have free time. And if I do have free time, I try to read a book or see a friend. But now that we've been in this pandemic, I've watched so many TV shows. I've watched probably every TV show that you've ever seen and so much more. And this is so unlike me. I've also had more of a sedentary life in the pandemic. I don't work out as much. I don't walk as much. I don't leave this little area as much. I'm also the kind of person who's just taken some bad habits with my phone. I can't go anywhere without this phone. It's with me constantly. I'm on TikTok more than I'm doing anything else. So all of these things right here are things I'm not necessarily super proud of, are things that I don't really want to take with me next year. And while the truth is I'm not going to suddenly revamp my whole life overnight, these are behaviors that I can start to pick apart and understand and see how I could change them, see how I could leave most of them behind this year. So I want you to think about 3 or 5 things that you want to leave behind. But before you do, you have to learn from them. So what are your mistakes, regrets, missed moments? Maybe there was a person you wanted to reach out to, but you never got the chance, or a job you wanted to apply for, but you never did. Maybe there were things that you wish you got a second chance for. If you could just have that conversation one more time, if you could just write that paper one different way, what are the things that you wish you had a second chance for? What are the things that maybe were failures for you that didn't go the way you wanted or didn't pan out how you planned? Before we let those go, before we leave them behind in 2021, it is so important that we break them down. So, what could you learn from those moments? How can you create boundaries from them? How could you look at those moments and say, okay, next year, I'm going to set a limit on my phone where my phone shuts off after I spend 30 minutes on TikTok a day. The phone just shuts off. And there are apps for that, by the way. Maybe you challenge yourself that every single day you move your body for at least 20 minutes. Maybe you delete your Netflix subscription so you cannot watch any more TV shows until you've done all of these different things you want to do. Maybe you get some self-help. And that could be from getting a mentor or getting a coach or reading a book or listening to a podcast to help pick you up from a place in your life that you feel stuck. Or maybe you can just dissect a lot of what you are, who you've become, habits you've taken on, and learn some lessons that you can carry with you for the next year. And finally, this is the last step. This is step number 4. Now, after we've done all of that dirty work, all of that inventory, you, my friend, can make a game plan for next year. And like I mentioned before, New Year's resolutions, what does that even mean? You're resolving to be someone, to do something, to try something, but I don't think those really ever stick, or they at least don't follow us as long as we wish. I like the word goals a lot because with goals, we can start to figure out, okay, what are we working toward? What are we trying out? And then from goals, we can pivot, we can adjust, we can change. So I want you to think about this. No more New Year's resolutions because those are generic. What do those even mean? Think about these 3 things instead. By the end of 2022, which I know seems so far away, but it's actually not, what are the things you want to say you've won at? What are the things you want to say you've achieved, you've succeeded at, you've tried, you've done, you've loved, you've enjoyed? What are those wins you want to have in your life? And again, wins are things that you go after and you get and you do. Maybe you want to become a better public speaker, and by the end of 2022, you want to get up on a stage and you want to be able to control your nerves. That would be a win. Maybe by the end of 2022, a win for you would be to have more solid relationships, more solid friendships. Maybe a win would be to fully understand your finances, to be able to say, I know exactly where my money is and I know exactly how it's working for me. And I'm a big believer in finances and figuring that out for yourself because that's important. And that's a skill that's going to carry with you year after year, is just taking control of your finances. Number 2 is changes. What are the things that you want to change next year? What are the things that by the end of the year you say, I've done differently? I have made changes in my life. These can be habits. These could be life goals, life events. Maybe you want to change jobs. Maybe you want to change how you meal prep for the entire week so that you're eating healthier. Maybe you want to change how you approach situations and have tighter boundaries. Maybe what you want to change is how you spend your time, or how you spend your weekends, or how you spend your mornings, or how you spend your life. What is it that you want to change? For a year to stand out, for a year to be solid, for a year to bring us joy, we have to have this element of change. If not, another year passes us by, and before we know it, it's 2026 and we haven't done anything that we want to do. So what are the change elements that you want to put forward? And finally, what are goals? What are the goals you want to have? And again, goals do not equal finish line. We might not ever get to the finish line. That is okay. The beauty in goals is that you are trying. So what is it that you want to try to make 2022 different and powerful and all about you? Remember the word control and pair that word with change. Control and change are what make for a wonderful year. And you deserve that. Whether or not anyone has told you that in a very long time, you deserve to take control of your life and make awesome changes. As always, I am Jen Glantz, cheering you on. I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye. Hey you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.